friends, welcome back to another exciting and inspiring episode of On Location Vancouver. I'm your host, Zara Durrani. The show is brought to you with the generous support of TELUS STORYHIVE. Today, we're here at Vancouver Community College, one of British Columbia's largest and longest standing post-secondary institutions. I am honored to be joined by Ajay Patel, President of Vancouver Community College, to talk about his own journey into leadership, about the role VCC plays in supporting students, strengthening our workforce, and serving the community. Let's go speak with Ajay Patel. Ajay, thank you so much for welcoming us here at Vancouver Community College.
Good afternoon, Zara, and welcome to VCC. And it's great to do this interview, and thanks very much for having me.
My pleasure. You have an incredible story, and we're also going to dig deep about Vancouver Community College, but I'm also very fascinated about your history before you came here at Vancouver Community College. So you've had a remarkable journey from growing up in Fiji and East Vancouver to now leading Vancouver Community College. Looking back, what moments or experiences would you say most shaped your path that brought you here?
For me personally, I mean, we immigrated here in the 70s. When my parents were real strong proponents of us getting an education. So education was the driver for us to leave Fiji to come here as new immigrants. But my parents stayed back in Fiji so they could financially support us. So they didn't immigrate here till the 90s. So I came here in the 70s and I lived with my aunt and my grandfather. So first of all, I needed the family experience, and the importance of getting an education was really important to my family. So that's why we came here, and I subsequently went on to get that education. My parents then immigrated here into the 90s, and then I went on to UBC and did my undergraduate degree, my graduate degree. And during that time, I had the opportunity to be a student at what was VCC Langara campus before I went to UBC. So education was the main driver. And then the other experiences that I recall very distinctly are the mentorships that I received throughout my path, particularly as I was growing up. But at the same time, growing up in the 70s and 80s, I always had this challenge where I was like, am I Canadian enough? Because being a new immigrant, a person of color, you come to a new country, barely speak the language. My aunt and my grandfather spoke limited English. My parents weren't with me. I was just here with my brother. So you really get kind of into that identity crisis.
That can be quite challenging, and it's something I can resonate with quite a bit. I moved here in 2000 and did just a year and a half of high school. And it's very interesting when you come here in your teens, like late teens, because you have this identity in your home country and you think the transition is going to be easy. Yeah. So how did you manage that, and what did you find helped you in your transition in creating this identity of being Canadian?
I think I was struggling with it when I was younger, and I probably will suggest I had an identity crisis, and at times I just wanted to be a white male Christian, I'll be honest. But I think over time I've learned to embrace the culture and diversity. And I think a lot of it had to do with that. Back then, a lot of us didn't understand each other's society, each other's diaspora. So you tried really hard to fit in what was the Canadian crowd, and then you had to go back home and try and fit in with what was your cultural crowd. And so I struggled with that a lot until my 20s. And then as I discovered getting into sport and education and getting some mentoring at that time, that was really helpful, particularly in my latter years of high school. I had a physical education instructor. His name was Bob Albiston, and he really helped me navigate through things. And then as I moved into college and education and coaching and sport, that really helped me come to a better consensus of how I was going to balance my life.
Before moving into post-secondary education, you spent many years, as you've mentioned, in sport leadership, including roles with organizations like Badminton BC and Gymnastics BC. Wow. How did that chapter of your career influence the way that you lead today?
I think it influenced my career tremendously. Sport was such an important piece of my life that I didn't really realize that till I got probably into this role here. Leading both of those organizations taught me, again, about teamwork, about empowering people, about building trust. And also, all those organizations were nonprofit organizations, so there was a social cause to them as well, whether that was increasing participation at a grassroots level, or whether that was high-performing athletes where they had to train hard to try and achieve, success at a provincial, national, or in some cases even international level. And then there was the whole business side of running a nonprofit organization for the betterment of the membership. So I think the way that it equates to post-secondary is we were serving a membership here. We have the privilege of serving students in our community. In sport, you serve the athletes, the coaches, and the community of the sport organization. So there's a lot of translations there. And then from the business aspect of it, running a sport organization, I was able to take a lot of those skill sets and use them here in terms of how we run and operate the college.
When I'm hearing you speak, I hear this passion for people, community, and service.
Yeah,
where would you say that comes from?
Probably from my parents and my grandparents. We were always grounded in community service and what was good for the community, and tried to do that for everybody ever since I've been growing up. And then working in nonprofit sport, I got into that. You work for the coaches and the athletes. And then when you come to an institution like VCC, where we really work for the community here, not just the student community, but our broader community. And we've been doing that for over 140 years. It was an easy translation for me. And it's a values match piece as well. One of the things I probably didn't share with you, I even as a student worked down the road here on Commercial Drive. And again, it was an opportunity to serve the community. So that service-mindedness really comes from a values perspective, from a family. And then working in sport, there was that whole continual piece there. But at the end of the day, this is all about relationships in my mind. And I've been really fortunate that we've been able to develop relationships all along my path and my career. And a lot of those people have the same kind of values as I do, where they want to see what's better for society and want to make society better and want to make themselves better as well.
What would you say to someone who is an introvert, perhaps? Because I think we're all a bit of both. There's extroverts and introverts, whether someone is coming here and they're a doctor back home, or they're coming here as a student. And of course, speaking from personal experience, I feel that community builds over time, and it's one of those things, the more you put energy into, not for the sake of self-gain actually, even though that may come, but if you just reach out to be, so I think there may be individuals out there watching, or perhaps there are even students here at VCC who could be wondering, what if I'm an introvert or I'm feeling very shy? How do I build that community?
We do have students, and we have staff as well that are introverts here. So, and we have programs here for employee development, and we've talked to some individuals there that would consider themselves introverts. I don't want to necessarily assign people as introverts or extroverts. I think we all, like you said, have a little bit of both. But if you are an introvert, I think one of the best ways to actually look at yourself is what are the strengths and skills that you have, and where are the relationships of those individuals that have that strength and skill, where you can have that conversation with somebody. It could be something simple as sitting down like this and talking about something you're both interested in. But take a chance on yourself. You have a lot of skills, and sometimes we don't take a good inventory of our own skill sets. And once we do that, you find out that you have a lot to offer somebody else. You have a lot to offer the community. And we have students like that coming in our institution all the time, particularly newcomers. We have mid-career learners that come back. And so they have skill sets that will help them flourish. And so we want to bring that out in those individuals, because that's what makes them special.
Now, your personal story, AJ, includes navigating your career as a person of color and someone with a hearing disability. How would you say those experiences have shaped the way you approach leadership and inclusion?
Just being a person of color, there's always this feeling of, do I belong here or do I not belong here? Some of that's internalized, some of that's real. My hearing disability was much later in life, so probably in my 30s, I think. So still don't know the cause of that. But from those experiences, first of all, we've got to learn that you belong. And so that took a while for me to understand. But going through that experience, and then that experience of losing some of my hearing in latter years, has allowed me to become much more empathetic, understanding. So a good example is here at Vancouver Community College, we have programs for the visually impaired, the deaf, the blind. And before I became the president here, I wasn't used to having a sign language interpreter at all of my speeches that I might do to the college community. And now I have a sign language interpreter beside me all the time whenever I'm speaking to the college community. But it made me change, understand how I must prepare myself so that the sign language interpreter can better articulate and communicate what I want to communicate to those that need that communication. So I think I learned how to be empathetic and understanding, and to a certain extent to look at different viewpoints. And then being a person of color, I've always, sit across the table and say, okay, well, how am I viewed? How might they view me? And how do I balance that out? So I'm becoming more and more comfortable with it, but it is a journey, and I'm not so sure I'm always going to be perfectly there. But for those that are experiencing similar kind of doubts, I would say, you know what, jump in with both feet, have confidence in yourself, because you make decisions to come here, you make decisions to come to this country and do what you do in terms of education and or work. That's quite courageous to begin with. And so I think those that sometimes question their own courageousness, they should probably rethink that they've actually been pretty courageous. They've done things that most people can't do.
Let's talk a bit about leadership, coming back to you. Leadership often comes with difficult decisions and big responsibilities, like the role that you have right now. What has been one of the most meaningful or defining moment for you since becoming the president of VCC?
For VCC, for me personally, it would be the pandemic, the onset of the pandemic. Obviously, none of us were ready for that time or that type of event that took place and how long it took. So that was a defining moment for VCC. It was defining, obviously, because it was a world pandemic. There was obviously some real challenges that we faced. Obviously, individuals died, and it was a challenge. But from an institutional perspective, we had a number of challenges, but we also had some pretty amazing opportunities. So the challenges obviously were, how do you pivot what is really hands-on learning, applied learning, and now you go through technology. And so we had to help everybody pivot and help the learners and still be able to graduate nurses, graduate chefs, graduate healthcare assistants, graduate auto technicians, graduate estheticians. And so that changing of how we went to online, how we did some of the applied learning allowed us to explore different methods of teaching, whether that we went to using technology, visual and augmented reality, simulation, all those types of things. So the opportunity to pivot learning and to give the students and still graduate the students that we needed for the workforce. And obviously we had students coming back in cohorts and isolated, so that if there was any type of an outbreak, we could deal with that. So that was the first part. But I think more importantly for VCC, the defining moment was the word community in our name. And I say that because I'll never forget getting a phone call from a colleague at the city of Vancouver. The pandemic had just hit, and we were waiting. They were trying to figure out. We had no vaccine. They were like, okay, we've got all these downtown East Side residents. They're going to those single resident occupant units. How are we going to feed them? And I had a colleague from sport who was part of Team BC, now working at the city of Vancouver. Her name's Michelle Collins. I guess she was part of whatever the city was doing as their emergency operation. She goes, I know someone that might be able to give us some kitchens. And so she called me up, and we opened up our downtown kitchens, where for about a period of 12 weeks, we served about 72,000 meals to the downtown East Side. And that was the coming together of our chefs in the kitchens. Our custodial staff were packaging the food, and our engineering team was delivering the food to the downtown East Side single resident occupants. So the opportunity to serve the community at a time of crisis was really a defining moment, I think, another defining moment for us. And I think a third one for me was that parking lot behind me that now has Center for Clean Energy being built, but at that time there was nothing on there. We were able to instantly make that available to become the largest COVID testing site to begin with, and then it became the largest COVID vaccination site as well.
I remember that.
Right,
yeah.
and so the opportunity for this college to really shine from a community perspective, not just by helping our learners, but helping the community, of keeping people safe from a food security perspective, and being part of a health response team. And there's a number of other stories, but those were the big stories that stick out in my mind. And you know what? We couldn't have done that without the leadership team that we had here, because I can tell you it wasn't me doing it by myself. We had an amazing team that was able to execute all that flawlessly. And then I must admit, we have partners at Costa Health, the city, and the province that stepped up. So it really showed how you could come together and how this institution can bring all those groups together.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Now, you had just joined VCC because you joined Vancouver Community College in 2019 as Vice President of Enterprise and International Development. Could you have imagined that a year later you'd be stepping into the role of president and then a situation out of the movies would be happening?
No, I would not even bet you $5 on that. I can tell you that. No, it was, I did not expect that. And I certainly wasn't, I came here to help do the real estate development plan for Peter, who was the president at that time, and then he moved on. When Peter moved on, the board chair called me up and asked me if I wanted to be the interim president. So I agreed, again, not thinking I'd become the president. And the way things worked out, I had the opportunity to become the president. But I think what I can take away from that is all those skill sets that we were talking about earlier from sport, the opportunity to build a team, put a team together, set goals, try and have a conversation, but most importantly, build those relationships with the key individuals that you need so you can move the organization forward. I think that's what I was able to bring to this institution at that time. And then I was fortunate enough that the board thought I was competent enough to be able to lead the organization. And I had a lot of colleagues here that supported me as well. So I'm very thankful for that. And they put their trust in me. And I found myself being the president only to then take on the pandemic.
Now, Vancouver Community College has been part of this city since the 1800s. I did not know that. From your perspective, what role does VCC play in the life of Vancouver today? I mean, you've shared quite a bit, but let's dig into that even further.
So our physical structure was up in 1890. So we were established in the 1880s, then we had a physical structure in the 1890s. So quickly from there until now, we started off as Vancouver Central School. UBC was an offshoot of Vancouver Central School. Subsequently, we then, then Emily Carr, the Vancouver School of Art became Emily Carr. That was an offshoot of Vancouver Central School. We then became Vancouver Vocational Institution. VCIT came from that. And ultimately, and then we became Vancouver Community College, and we had both this campus downtown.
So some of the big...
So any of you that are graduates from UBC, VCIT, or Emily Carr, your history comes back to Vancouver Central School. And then we had what was VCC Langara campus, where I went as a student and ultimately became Langara College as an independent college. So that's to say we've been part of the post-secondary landscape ever since post-secondary started in British Columbia. But the one thing that hasn't changed over our time, no matter what name we've had, we've always continued to serve the region for whatever its needs were. So in the early days of Vancouver Central School, we served the needs of what was the start of post-secondary education. We didn't have UBC, so we provided university studies that transferred to, it was McGill at that time. Fast forward to today, we are now doing the training for this region where it's downtown and Broadway. So the nurses that you see, the estheticians that you see, the car mechanics that you have, the chefs that you see, the nurses that you have, the healthcare assistants, all of those people are coming from this institution. And so the practical nurses. So I think one thing that VCC has continued to do is continue to serve this region from an economic perspective, and we're really proud of that. And now moving into the future, we're going to be building this Center for Clean Energy, which is a great opportunity to see what the future of VCC looks like from a clean energy perspective, and it'll be an evolution of what we offer.
Now, one thing people say about VCC is that it focuses on hands-on learning and real-world skills. Why is that approach so important right now, especially in today's job market? With all the conversation around AI, the controversial topic.
Yes. I mean, first of all, we've always been a hands-on learning institution, going back to our 140-year history. So I think that's the first thing we'll say. No matter what we've done, it's always been hands-on learning. But we've adapted the technology as the technologies come. And so right now we are focused still on hands-on learning, but we are starting to make sure that we meet with labor market needs. So any of our current programs that we have, they're there to meet the labor market needs, and all the new programs we're introducing in clean energy, electrician construction, they all require that hands-on learning. But what we've learned is how to integrate the technology into that hands-on learning. So for example, can we use technology to build certain levels of competency or help students learn about safety through virtual and augmented reality before we put them into real life settings, right? So that's how we're leveraging technology to get to a certain point or certain competency and be able to have the hands-on learning. You mentioned AI. Yes, AI is here and it's here to stay, and we're all trying to navigate it very differently. I'm really proud of how our institution has embraced AI, and we're using it to augment the teaching that we do. Because the reality is the teaching that we do, AI can't replace that hands-on learning at all, right? What it can do is it can enhance it, it can augment it, and it can support it. And in fact, it might even increase productivity of individuals. So I think we have embraced technology in various different ways, and we know it's going to continue to change, and I think we'll continue to change with it. And that Center for Clean Energy probably speaks volumes of how we will change as an institution, but we won't go stray away from the roots of making sure that we provide access and pathways for all of the learners that come here, and that will continue serving the economic needs of the region. So one of the other outcomes of the pandemic was that because we all went to online, we had this ambitious campus plan at that time that the board approved of wanting to redevelop our real estate to make sure that we were able to be financially sustainable moving into the future for the programs that we have. And so we undertook a campus planning exercise for Broadway and downtown. And part of that campus planning exercise was to see if we can build a Center for Clean Energy and Automotive Innovation, because the future of energy was going in the way of clean tech, clean energy, electrification, hydrogen, all those. And so we put in a submission to the provincial government to be able to get the Center for Clean Energy built. The reason we were able to get that submission done so well was during the pandemic, we went to online, so you could have 5 or 6 meetings with key people in 1 week rather than try and organize schedules over months. And so long story short, we were able to create a plan where we were able to present to government that if we were able to build a Center for Clean Energy and Automotive Innovation, that we could then leverage that to free up the rest of our real estate to not only build a second academic building, but the opportunity to build 2,000 housing units on this campus, right where you're sitting. And so that vision of not only building what we needed as modernized spaces for teaching, but an opportunity to provide civic amenities, housing, daycare, as an opportunity to really leverage.
Students?
No, this is for the city of Vancouver, for the public. So that's what we've undertaken. So the Center for Clean Energy is now well underway. It's slated for completion at the end of 2027, and we'll be in it early 2028. So we're halfway there. Looking forward to that. It's the largest investment by provincial government in public post-secondary. It's a $300 million building, 300,000 square feet of space, and it'll house all of our clean energy programs, our automotive programming. We'll have our student services out of there. We'll have our Indigenous gathering spaces and some other programs that'll be based out of there. And so we're really looking forward to that. But that will unleash the rest of the campus plan opportunity to then build the 2,000 housing units that we're in. We're working with the city right now, and they're going policy statement and rezoning work on that.
Sounds like VCC is up to some real good over here.
We always have been.
I love that. I love hearing that. VCC offers programs across many areas, from health sciences and hospitality to trades and design. What makes the college unique compared to other post-secondary institutions in British Columbia?
I think a number of things. Some you just listed. The programs that we offer really line up with labor market needs, with health needs, and accessibility needs. We're also the only institution west of Ontario that provides full programming for the visually impaired, the deaf, and hard hearing as well. So I think that uniqueness in itself is an interesting makeup, because that's not a typical post-secondary.
Has that always been the case, or since you came?
It's been the case for probably at least the last 4 or 5 decades, for sure. Yeah, since the existence of what was VCC in the 70s and the college, yes, we've been always providing those programs. And then we also provide programs for newcomers as well, new immigrants. And so the average age of our learners is about 32. And so we're certainly getting people from different types of backgrounds. So the demographics itself makes VCC unique. And then the programming that we offer is really interesting in terms of the health. We provide Bachelor of Science of Nursing, licensed practitioner, and healthcare assistant. And the reason I list those three, those are pathways. So somebody that's a newcomer or someone that's new to coming out of high school, you can come in as a healthcare assistant. You can go work, you can come back, you can do your licensed practice nurse, go back and work, come back, and you can finish a registered nurse as well if you wanted. And so we provide those pathways and opportunities for individuals to be able to come in and out of the workforce so that they can continually be learners. As I mentioned before, all the programs that we offer continue to serve the needs of the region. So your auto technicians, your hairstylists, your chefs, all those individuals, they have an opportunity to be here. And now we're going to be introducing clean energy into that mix. So the opportunities there. Early childhood education is another one that's a big one. So we continue to provide and meet what are really needs of the community.
As someone who grew up in this community and now leads one of its key educational institutions, what does it mean to you personally to serve in this role?
Dream come true.
I hear your passion. I hear your passion.
Yeah, it's still surreal sometimes, to be honest with you. I never imagined myself in a president's role, even in my wildest dreams. So it's been a real privilege to come here and serve. But I think I've now learned that we have an opportunity to have impact and make intentional impact as well, all the way from role modeling for other people of color to demonstrating how an institution that can be very community-minded can not only still be a great place to learn, but can also serve the community in very different ways that helps the community out. I think that, and then I want to be a place where people want to come here and work and want to make not only the organization and the institution better, but at the end of the day, help individuals that graduate from here to make society better. So I think, it means the world to me. And as someone that grew up in East Vancouver, just up the road and worked down the road, it's, I don't know, it's, like I said, I honestly can say all the time, my 6.5 years here, I've never come to work one day thinking, oh my God, I'm in trouble. I've always loved, I get up with a smile on my face. Even during the pandemic, I love coming into work here. I love this place.
How could you not? I mean, I know we've covered up the views. The views are incredible. Finally, for anyone who is watching either right now or later on, who may be thinking about their next chapter in life, whether they're young students fresh out of high school, or thinking of a career change or newcomers to Canada, what message would you like to share with them about opportunities? I know we've talked about that throughout our conversation today, but what would you like to specifically say to them on camera about what opportunities exist for them here at VCC?
First of all, at VCC, I think we have opportunities for all types of learners. So just go onto our website and you'll find those opportunities. And if you can't, we can maybe redirect you to an organization or an institution that does. But in terms of advice, I think the best advice I would give everybody out there, education is no longer a moment in time. To me, it's a lifelong journey now, and that we have to be good. We have to learn how to be good learners. And at VCC, I think we've taken on that truly at heart, where we've got programming that spans all the way from students, even before they graduate from high school, to those that are in mid-career learners that want to make those shifts. And so if there's an opportunity to serve some of those learners, we would welcome that. If not, we would want to help them get there.
Amazing. AJ, thank you so much for your time. I feel truly inspired just sitting here. I know I did the few moments I've had on the red carpets with you, and I knew there was more to the story, and thank you for taking the time to sit down with me. You're doing remarkable work, just not just in your life, but obviously here at VCC, and obviously VCC is aiming to touch many lives, inspire people, and be a part of the community here in Vancouver. So thank you again, and thank you to everyone at VCC. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much, Sarah, and thank you for being a role model for us as well. I appreciate that, and I appreciated this opportunity. Thanks.
My pleasure. Well, thank you all for watching and tuning in. I'm your host, Zara Durrani. It's always a pleasure bringing inspiring Vancouver stories to you with the generous support of TELUS STORYHIVE. Until next time, we'll see you soon on Location Vancouver. Thank you for joining us for this episode of On Location Vancouver. If you would like to be a guest on the show, please scan the QR code and someone from our team will be in touch. We'll see you soon.